Ina Kupferberg. I am a member of the UJA Long Island Advisory Committee. It is truly an honor to be here with you as we celebrate the work of the Jewish Women's Leaders Council of the Five Towns. Let's have some applause. This evening's event is a collaboration between UJA Federation of New York, the Marion and Aaron Goral JCC, and the Jewish Women Leaders Council of the Five Towns. And welcome to Love and Laughter. The Jewish Women Leaders Council is a newly formed council who are supporting the vibrant Jewish life here in the Five Towns. We at UJA are supporters of the Five Towns community, a community that is dedicated to thriving Jewish life. We support your community in many ways, and oftentimes very quietly in ways unseen. One of the important programs that UJA has focused on for this past year is to help secure our shuls. To that end, we've invested $4 million to help secure the 2,000 Jewish institutions across New York. These are places where Jewish life should flourish without fear. We also believe in supporting the vulnerable in the Five Towns. Programs such as the Shop at Goral JCC, providing kosher food for families facing hardship. The Holocaust Survivors Program at Goral JCC, providing case management and financial support, and any and all services that our survivors deserve. We understand the importance of yeshivas in the Five Towns and support them through scholarships, endowments, and many more initiatives. And we will continue to build on our work in the Five Towns and hope to partner with JWLC to better understand your needs and to support you. In the meantime, please turn your attention to the screens for a brief video highlighting UJA's impact in New York, Israel, and around the world.
I really believe that every single step you take in Jerusalem, you're walking through history.
What they've been through is extraordinary, and not everybody can understand, but they can understand each other.
We are there for them. The relationship that we have with them is incredibly special and wonderful.
For the past 100 years, UJA has been assessing the needs of the community and responding with innovative solutions to those challenges. We are transitioning all of the food pantries in our network to a dignified and efficient digital system to be sure that we can have the most immediate impact.
This makes for a very efficient way for the right foods to get into each family's home.
It's the combination of a wide range of social services that will ultimately move more people from crisis to stability.
We are working all over the world with countries that are impacted by natural disasters, terror attacks. Everybody we work with is trained in trauma-focused interventions. They are all very committed and they jump when they are needed.
Before we get our program started, I'd like to give a very special welcome to Stu Tauber, Vice President of Regions for UJA, and the UJA professionals working here in the Five Towns. Seppi DeJavere, and we thank her for this very special night. Randy Newman and Curtis Sobin. And from Goral JCC, Steve Bernstein, President. Aaron Rosenfeld, CEO. Stacy Feldman and Rochelle Deutsch. Speaking of the JCC, I'd like to once again call your attention to the screens for a brief video on the JCC, our nonprofit partner here in the Five Towns. Pleasure to welcome Rebbetzin Sori Teitelbaum, co-chair of the Jewish Women Leaders Council of the Five Towns.
Thank you, Ina, for your informative words about the wonderful accomplishments of the UJA. We are so appreciative for all that the UJA has done to help us create this most incredible organization of the Jewish Women Leader Council, the JWLC. Each Rebbetzin in this community about 8 months ago received somewhat of a mysterious phone call from Seppi. I can't pronounce your last name. Java Harry. We had no idea what she really wanted from any of us. And actually, I think each of us separately was so intrigued that we decided to go to this first meeting and see what this was about. I believe that we are truly blessed that we have answered this special woman's call, and we have changed from a large community to a united community, a community with a wonderful representation all across the board. I would like to recognize my efficient and very talented JWLC co-chairs, Rebbetzin Margie Glatt, Shoshana Soroka Halpern, and Myrna Zisman. I would like to ask all the members of the JWLC who are here tonight, when I call your name, to please stand and be recognized. Rebbetzin Rookie Billet, our wonderful moderator for the night, Suri Lenore Davis, Rachel Deutsch, Dr. Deborah Dienstag, Rebbetzin Aviva Feiner, Rebbetzin Malki Feigenbaum, Rebbetzin Margie Glatt, Rebbetzin Nancy Hain, Rebbetzin Fagi Horowitz, Elisheva Kamenetsky, Rebbetzin Shani Lefkowitz, Rebbetzin Nava Orlean, Rachel Pill, Rebbetzin Tova Polikoff, Rebbetzin Fagit Balbag, Rebbetzin Lisa Septimus, Shoshana Soroka Halpern, Leanne Taylor, Rebbetzin Malka Trump, Rebbetzin Myrna Weinberger, Rebbetzin Sephora Weinberger, Deborah Weinrib, Mindy Werblowski, Rebbetzin Chani Wallowik, and Myrna Zisman. I wanted to briefly share with you a parable that I heard that I believe really sends a message to us all tonight. There was once a king who had 4 wives. You guys think you have it hard. The king was deathly ill, and he was afraid to go to the afterlife alone. He asked his 4th wife, the one who he loved the most, the one who he showered with expensive gifts, diamonds, gold, and clothing, if she would please die with him and come with him to the afterlife. She answered that she would not join him, and she walked away. He then asked his 3rd wife if she would join him in the afterlife. And the 3rd wife, who he also loved very much, he was very proud of her. He even showed her off to all the other neighboring kingdoms. The third wife answered that she loved life too much to go with him, and in fact, after he died, she was planning on remarrying. He then asked the second wife if she would die and join him in the afterlife. This wife was the one who was always there for him in times of need. She answered that she's very sorry she cannot go with him and help him this time, but certainly she will plan his funeral and she will send him off. All of a sudden, the king heard a voice behind him say, "I will go with you wherever you go. I will die and go with you to the afterlife." The king turned around and saw that it was his first wife. He felt embarrassed and ashamed because this is the wife that he loved the least and he neglected the most. He apologized and he said, "I'm so sorry. I should have taken better care of you while I was alive and healthy." The moral of the story is that we all have 4 wives. The fourth wife, the one that we love the most, is our body. We decorate it with fine jewelry and beautiful clothing, but in the end, our body cannot come with us to the afterlife. The third wife represents our possessions. We spend a lot of time gathering them and showing them off, but in the end, they too cannot join us in the afterlife. And like the third wife who would remarry and belong to another man, our possessions will be divided amongst other people. The second wife represents our family and our friends. They're always there for us in good times and in times of need. But the farthest they can go with us is to prepare our funeral and send us off. Fourth wife is our soul. We usually neglect taking care of our soul, yet that is what will follow us into the next world. So yes, we should take care of our bodies, enjoy our possessions for the comfort they provide, cherish our friends and family for their love and support, but we must not forget to nourish the source of our lives, our soul. We each have married our soulmate. Just a few weeks ago, we read in the story of Yehuda pleading to Yosef for his brother Binyamin's freedom. Yehuda explains, "Nafsho kshura b'nafsho." My father's soul is bound to the soul of my brother Binyamin. The hidden message that's explained in the commentaries is that their souls were bound because Yaakov and the soul of Binyamin's mother Rachel, his true soulmate, were bound. Our goal tonight is to solidify the bond between your soul and your soulmate so that they're nourished, they're healthy, they're strong, and filled with love and laughter. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our talented comedian. Ashley Blaker has performed on 5 continents, including tours of the UK, Canada, South Africa, Israel, and Australia. His last off-Broadway show, Strictly Unorthodox, gained rave reviews, and his new off-Broadway show, Goy Friendly, opens this coming Monday evening. Ashley Blaker.
Thank you. Gavach, nice to be here. It is truly amazing how many people are here tonight. It really only just goes to show how many Jews you can gather together when free food is on offer. It really is quite humbling. Now, there's something you need to know right at the top of this tonight, and that is that I've been given very strict instructions by the organizers of this event. They said to me, look, this isn't a comedy show. This is the 5 Towns Marriage Symposium. They're going to be all the local rabbis and rebbetzins here. It needs to be about marriage. We don't want stand-up. Just talk about marriage, and whatever you do, don't be too funny. Now, most comedians would probably be put off by this, but I'm a clever man, and I can see 2 huge advantages. Firstly, there's no pressure. If no one laughs, I've done a good job. This might sound strange to anyone here who doesn't live with this kind of stress, but imagine if you're a dentist and everywhere you went, people always expected you to perform a root canal. Or if you were a lawyer and everyone always expected you to be a lying slime ball. You have to have a night off. Secondly, I've doubled my money. Because if you want to see me actually perform comedy, you've got to come and see my new show, Ashley Blaker Goy Friendly, which opens this coming Monday in the city. And hopefully then I'll actually be funny instead of talking about marriage. And by the way, if at any point during the next 15 minutes or so I do get too funny, please feel free to heckle me. I would like to be the first ever comedian to be booed off for being too funny. And I will say, it isn't easy for me to do this, because the bar for comedy in the Orthodox world isn't set that high. You know, when the height of comedy at Purim is somebody banging the stender and shouting out Al HaMichya instead of Al HaNissim, you know you don't have to do too much to get people laughing. If any of my jokes ever fall flat, I always just shout out Yale V'Yavo. People are wetting themselves at that kind of material in my show. And it's also sensible for me not to try and perform comedy tonight, because one thing you need to know is when you're a comedian and you get asked to perform or speak at events like this, you can always guarantee that a few days before you will get a phone call from the rabbi or rebbitzin to tell you what you can and can't say. And if you want a bit of an insight into how I am different to any other comedian in the world, this is a good example. Because every other comedian in the world gets a phone call and are told, look, please, there's going to be some very frum people in the room, there's going to be rabbis, there's going to be rebbitzin. Whatever you do, don't swear, don't talk about anything inappropriate, keep it clean. Not me. I always get a phone call and are told, look, we know it's a shul event, but please don't be too Jewish. Don't use too much Yiddish. Not everyone in the room has been to yeshiva. Try and keep it Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Every other comedian is told, keep it clean. I get asked, can you be a bit less clean? And this is totally true. I was recently performing for a large outreach organization in New Jersey. And when I arrived, they were in a total panic. And the rabbi came over to me and said, please, whatever you do, please don't use the word frum. That's what he said, don't use the word frum. Now, comedians are often told, please don't use the F word. But it isn't normally that one. It should go without saying, they definitely didn't want me to use the C word, Haredi. Or even worse, Chabad. So anyway, very exciting to be here on this very auspicious weekend as well. Somebody asked me outside just before if I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl tomorrow. And are the men in the room looking forward to the Super Bowl, by the way? Anyone here? Yes, we are. We are looking forward to it. No, because I've got to be honest, I have to be honest, I couldn't care less about the Super Bowl. Firstly, it's clearly a total Bittles-a-mun, and I'm obviously far too frum for this kind of shtus. Why any frum Yid should be concerned about the San Francisco 49ers or the Kansas City Chiefs is beyond me. The only teams you should be interested in are the Sura Gioinim and the Pompadisa Amoroyim. The only numbers you should care about are Brachas Daf Lamed, and the only end zone you should be interested is the Siyum on finishing the Masechta on March the 7th. The only good return I've ever seen in a football stadium was the "will return to you" at the Siyum Hashas. But more importantly, I don't want to offend you Americans, but it would be bad enough if it was real football, what you call soccer. But you Americans, you took football and you said, let's get rid of the goals, let's change the shape of the ball, let's alter the scoring system and the number of players on the team. Well, that's not football anymore, is it? It would be like taking Judaism and saying, let's get rid of the mechitza, let's have women rabbis, and we don't have to keep Shabbos and kosher anymore. I hate to tell you this, but gridiron is the Reformed Judaism of football. Only those of us that follow real football are truly keeping the flame alive, playing football as Hashem created it and taught it to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. Forget the Egel Hazahav. Had Moshe Rabbeinu come down from Har Sinai and found Tom Brady throwing a pass to Julian Edelman, then he'd have really been cross. I don't even know who these apicorsim are. A friend had to tell me the name of this Brady fellow. So anyway, I thought, let me just, before I get going properly, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself and my background, and hopefully that will be slightly less funny. So first thing first, my name, as you know, is Ashley Blaker. And let me just clarify again for you Americans, that really is my name. Because while it is always a man's name in the UK, Americans always say to me, but Ashley, that's a girl's name. Now, let me just clear this up once and for all. My mother was, and still is, a very big fan of the movie Gone with the Wind. And there is a male character in that movie called Ashley Wilkes, played by a man called Leslie Howard. Now, ironically, Leslie can also be a girl's name, but let's not get bogged down in that. The point is, Gone with the Wind is an American movie. It was based on an American novel. So this means that somewhere between 1975, when I was born, and 2020, some total jerk thought it would be a funny idea to make my life difficult by changing Ashley into a girl's name. It's a man's name. It's in a movie. Not some obscure movie you've never heard of. It won 8 Oscars. No one at the Academy was going, we can't give this film Best Picture because there's a man in it with a woman's name. You know, I would love this to happen to another name and see how people liked it. Nothing against Chabad, but how funny would it be if in 20 years' time, the non-Jewish world decided that Menachem Mendel is now a woman's name? And suddenly every Lubavitcher man in the world would experience my life and have people going, Menachem? But that's a girl's name. So anyway, my name is Ashley, and clearly I am a bit of a frummie now, but I don't mind telling you I am what we call a Baal Teshuvah. I didn't grow up this way. But I always like to tell people that even when I was growing up, even when I was furthest away from being observant, there was always one mitzvah that I took particularly seriously and never ever transgressed. Believe it or not, in all my years growing up, I never, at any point ever, coveted my neighbour's ox. Which is incredible, because you should have seen he did have a particularly nice one. You know, I was performing somewhere recently, and when I said I'm a Baal Teshuvah, the audience broke into a little round of applause. It was lovely. It felt so nice. It felt exactly what I imagined it must have felt like to go on the Oprah Winfrey show. No, too late now. It's... It made me want to go on one of those shows myself. You know, I thought I could go on and say, yeah, Oprah, I used to be addicted to Ben and Jerry's Chunky Monkey, but I've been off the non-supervised milk for 3 years. Quick tip, by the way, if any of you are addicted to non-Cholav Yisrael, non-supervised ice cream and want to quit, trust me, the only thing that works is cold turkey, because then you're flashik and can't eat the ice cream. It's obvious when you think about it. So anyway, important part, I am married. Sorry, ladies. This ship has sailed. Admittedly, in my case, it's more of a pedal boat. And it's not easy, actually, being married to a teacher is particularly hard. We can be sat reading, and suddenly my wife will look at me and say, would you sit like that at home? I always say, we are at home. The worst is when we have visitors. The bell rings, and before I can move a muscle, my wife will say, the bell doesn't dismiss you, I do. You think I'm joking. A few years ago, my wife went on a school trip, and I thought, great, I'm going to have a whole week to myself, only to find out she'd organised a substitute wife. It was actually really good, because we knew she was only around for a week, so we just goofed around. She was gone before she learned any of our names. It was great. And for the last 15 years or so, we've lived right in the heart of the shtetl of Edgware in northwest London. Now, when we first got married, we actually lived in a different part of London called Muswell Hill. But we gradually became a little bit frummer, to the point whereby I felt that we really needed to move somewhere with an Erev, so I could show everyone how frum I am by not using it. And married life, I know we've got some people who are much more expert in this subject maybe than me. But I can say, as someone who's been married for, I have to try and work out how many years now. I should know that. That's not a good sign, is it? Not knowing how many years I've been married. Having been married for 17 yees, I think that's right. 70 years, it's not easy. It isn't easy. And one thing is, it's definitely not easy as a man. I can only speak as a man. I've never been, despite the name, I've never been a woman. But one thing I will say, it is difficult coming in contact with other women in the workplace. Not least because I find in my life that meetings nearly always start with being offered a hand to shake, which is obviously something which Orthodox Jews try not to do with people of the opposite sex, apart from their spouse. So I've spent years going into meetings with a bag in one hand and a coat in the other, and then when offered a hand to shake, I can go, But then a few years ago, my rabbi gave me a very strict book. I've actually got it with me tonight. It's a very strict book called 9 to 5. Are you aware of this book? 9 to 5, a guide to modest conduct for today's workplace, ironically named after a Dolly Parton song. And it's a very frum book, this book. And it says in this book, right, that shaking hands with someone of the opposite sex is not only forbidden rabbinically, but it is a biblical prohibition. And the upshot of this says in black and white, no word of a lie, it's on page 14. It says one is required to give up one's life before shaking hands with someone of the opposite sex, apart from their spouse. Now, about a week after reading this, I went to pitch a show at the BBC. And when I walked into the room, the lady I was meeting stuck out a hand for me to shake. And I noticed over her shoulder that the window of this 6th floor meeting room was wide open. And I suddenly remembered the book. And I thought to myself, maybe this is my moment. Maybe this is my test. Maybe I should make a run for the window shouting, Shema Yisrael. And it did cross my mind, it would be the greatest headline ever seen in a British newspaper. TV comedian dies Al-Kiddush Hashem at BBC headquarters. Obviously I'm stood here, so clearly I thought better of it. I threw her out the window instead. In case any of you are troubled by that, by the way, although I picked her up, I didn't touch her hand. That's the main thing. Also, I don't want to speak too much lashon hara about this book. He does have one practical suggestion. Again, totally true. It's on page 15. He says, when a man or when a lady or a man, if you're a woman, sticks out a hand, why not give them a business card? Which sounds quite a good idea when you first read it. What he doesn't address is what happens half an hour later at the end of the meeting. She sticks out her hand again. You have to go, oh, yeah, sorry, I changed my cell phone number during the meeting. Then what happens when you meet 6 months later? Basically, you have to keep changing your cell phone in order to justify keep giving out the cards. It's either that or you have lots of different cards, each with 1 digit of your number on. At least that way you can avoid shaking hands 11 times. And also, this is a very strict book. So here he discusses women who want to shake your hand. He can't even contemplate what I face. Touchy-feely media types who not only want to shake my hand, but for some unknown reason, want to kiss this face. Not even my wife wants to do that. All right, don't laugh too much. It's a bit insulting. And at least the thing with a handshake, you can spot it coming. But a kiss can take you by surprise. I've had to develop lightning reflexes. And I've actually perfected the kind of defensive moves Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard would have been proud of. Seriously, you should see me when women come at me. I dodge left, I duck right, I bob, I weave, I float like a butterfly, sting like a Maccabee. Now, one thing you can do is just don't put yourself in any social situations. So for that reason, I've literally never been to an award ceremony, even though I've won several awards. But I have decided if I ever absolutely knew I was going to win an Emmy, then I am going to go. Just because I'd love to hear them saying on TV, that's Ashley Blaker there just opening his kosher meal. He managed to get the wrapping off the tradition soup without too much spillage. But he seems to be struggling with the main course because it's double saran wrapped and the second layer has fused to the side of the container and is now impossible to get off without covering the cast of Homeland in stewed beef. The other thing you can do is always go to a meeting with my good friend and collaborator, the star of Little Britain, Doctor Who and Bridesmaids, Matt Lucas, because he is just brilliantly upfront about it. Every time we've been together for a meeting with a woman, he's gone straight in and said, I'm Jewish. But he's a real Jew. He's not going to shake your hand. Go on, stick your hand out, see what he does. Go on, stick it out. He won't shake it. The other thing you can do is just do what I always do now, which is always turn up to a meeting with this. Hello, how do you do? Nice to meet you. Give me 5. There you go. Fist bump. Yeah, kind of. I do really like using this. The trouble is they search your bag when you go into the BBC. Try explaining to the security guard why you're carrying a false arm. Even worse is when I try and explain the real reason that I don't touch any women apart from my wife because it might lead to an inappropriate relationship between us. Because when you do that, you do run the risk of coming across as rather arrogant. Yeah, I would shake your hand, but the trouble is because I am so irresistible, I can't take the risk that once you touch me, you're not going to be able to take your hands off me. Can I go around saying that? For a start, look at me, don't laugh. And the logic of this is great for my ego, because I've worked with some incredibly attractive actresses and TV stars over the years, and essentially, I snubbed them. A few years ago, I was working with the pop star Katy Perry. Who knows what might have happened between us if I hadn't refused that handshake? Stranger things have happened. Possibly not that strange. At the very least, she might have recorded the song, I Shook Hands with a Jew and I Liked It. But I can understand why the rabbis were so concerned about this, because shaking hands can be quite intimate. I mean, every time I see my wife, we always greet each other with a firm handshake. If it's a really romantic night, we'll shake hands for hours. Now, by the way, I hope you don't think I'm making this up. This really is my life. Only a few months ago, I went for a meeting, and this woman came down to reception to collect me, stuck out her hand. I said, oh, I'm really sorry, I don't shake hands. And she looked at me a bit offended and said, that sounds rather Islamic. I said, no, Jewish actually, but suit yourself. Basically, there are all these men in media who are getting in trouble at the moment for having been too handsy. I offend women by not being handsy enough. I'm kind of like a Jewish Harvey Weinstein. Don't be fooled by the name, he's not one of ours, no. Now, of course, the Orthodox world clearly doesn't trust married men to behave. We know this because the frum newspapers like the Hamadiyya and the Flatbush Jewish Journal pride themselves in never publishing photos of women, no matter what. Which does make sense when you think about it, because of course if any red-blooded Orthodox man ever saw a photo of Theresa May or Angela Merkel, well, who knows what could happen, eh? Merkel, eh? Even worse, sometimes they will include a photo, but the woman will have been airbrushed out or had her face pixelated. Even the Queen, a 93-year-old great-grandmother. Which really makes no sense at all for me, because if I want to catch a cheeky glimpse of the Queen, I just take my money out my pocket. I don't know what the frum world will ever do in the United States if they ever replace Alexander Hamilton with Madeleine Albright. The frum rabbis would have to ban everyone from using the new $10 bill. You go into a store and buy something for $90, you have to say, keep the change. Now, I know you're about to hear from some real experts in the subject of marriage, but before I go, I just wanted to share with you a couple of tips from personal experience. Firstly, I think you should look at me and my wife, because if you want to know how we avoid arguments, it's quite simple. She lives in London, I live in New York. Just live 3,500 miles away, and you'll get along just fine. Genuinely, the question I get asked most by other men is, how on earth are you getting away with this? And if the comedy ever fails, I am just going to turn it into a book, and I'm sure I've got a New York Times bestseller. The second bit of advice I would suggest is that every month, why don't you and your wife, or you and your husband, I'm not suggesting that there are two men married here, I was addressing that to the women. The second bit of advice is, why don't both of you go on a date night every month? And if you want something to go to this month, why not go to this? In fact, I have the playbill. I'm just saying this because it boosts my ego. But I saw the playbills today for this show, and this is the first time I've actually had my own playbill. I've been to Hamilton, I've been to the shows, and I've taken the photo of the playbill, but I never thought I'd take a playbill with my own face on it. So come along this month, and I should say, genuinely, I don't know. This is the 5 towns. You probably don't have any non-Jewish neighbors. But if you do, this show is goy-friendly. So bring your non-Jewish neighbors and your non-Jewish colleagues. So thank you for listening. If all I'm made to say is if you've enjoyed me, my name's Ashley Blaker. If you haven't enjoyed me, my name's Rabbi Sachs. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Shavua Tov, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm sure after 40 years, I don't have to introduce myself as Rookie Billet, but here I am. I'm very proud and excited to be a member of the JWLC. I just wanted to preface my introduction of Dr. Pelcovitz by saying that when I taught high school seniors about marriage and family, I always included a sentence by Dr. Norman Lamb. He said that looking for a marriage partner was like shopping for perfume. Everyone wants to buy the fragrances called passionate love, erotic fantasy, intimate ecstasy. But the modest, well-priced bottle called reasonable expectations, nobody was buying. Food for thought, I hope. I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Dr. David Pelcovitz holds the Gwendolyn and Joseph Strauss Chair in Psychology and Education at Yeshiva University's Azrieli Graduate School, where he also teaches pastoral psychology courses and is special assistant to the president. Before assuming this position on the faculty of YU, Dr. Pelcovitz was a clinical professor of psychology in psychiatry at New York University School of Medicine and director of psychology at North Shore University Hospital. In addition to helping so many people, he has published and lectured extensively on a variety of topics, including parenting, child abuse, trauma, and loss. It is our pleasure to host Dr. David Pelcovitz this evening.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the amazing amount of work that came into putting this all together. Gary, let's start with the perfect husband, okay? We're going to be showing, let me just tell you a little bit about what this is about in the 30 minutes I've been allotted, is it's movie clips that are hopefully a little funny. I once had a professor who said that art is making something out of nothing, humor is making nothing out of something, which I think is part of what's guiding tonight. So this is the introduction to our first discussion, which will be about money and marriage. And it's called The Perfect Husband.
Hello?
Honey? Are you at the club?
Yes.
I'm at the mall now, and I found this beautiful leather coat. It's only $1,000. Can I get it?
Well, sure, if you like it that much.
Okay. I also stopped by the Mercedes dealership and saw the new model. You know, the one I really like.
How much?
$120.
Well, at that price, I want it with all the options.
Great. Oh, and one more thing. The house we wanted last year is back on the market. They're asking 1.5.
We'll make them an offer. But come in at 1.4. love you too.
Okay, bye.
Does anybody know whose phone this is?
Okay, let me use that as a springboard for talking about very important issues in terms of marriage, okay? Especially in the early years of marriage, money is often the major source of conflict. Money-related conflicts tend to be more intense, last longer, and be less likely to end in resolution relative to other sources of disagreement. And it tends to be an area that often parents don't talk about with their children. It's interesting. Money is a tough area. I mean, when you think about it, why should it be so tough? But it's often tougher to talk about than just about any other area that one could imagine. Okay? Money is obviously a symbol, okay? It's a stand-in for power, security, achievement, and love. But here's some ways of thinking about it, like to the extent that tonight is a trigger to think about some deeper issues in our marriage. So one of the things to think about is how did your parents deal with money? Was it a source of fighting? Did they mostly spend money on themselves, or were they incredibly generous with you, not spending very much money on themselves? What did money mean to you growing up? Was it something that you took for granted? Was it a source of worry? How was allowance handled? And here's really an important piece of research, right? We're told, Ohev kesef lo yispa kesef. The lover of money is never satisfied with what they have. And here's what study after study shows. When money becomes the center of your existence, you're more likely to be less satisfied with life. You're more likely to want more money, like Koheles tells us. We're less apt to share. We have an overall poor adjustment. We're more likely to be dissatisfied with our job and pay, and we're more likely to have low energy. What are the recommendations? And I hope this isn't sounding too mechanistic, but the recommendations are pretty obvious in some ways, but I think it's important to take a step back and look at. My father, Oliver Sholem, would always say, couples don't have to think alike, they have to think together, which I think is not a bad way of thinking about marriage in general. So here's some recommendations based on that. One is, get curious. When you're able to be curious about where your spouse is coming from, you kind of activate your frontal prefrontal cortex, where men put on their shel rosh every weekday morning. Okay, so when we bring that air of curiosity and empathy, and when we strike when the iron is cold, that's when you're able to maybe think a little bit about, in a calm time, through striking when the iron is cold, about where does this come from? What's it about? And whenever we bring empathy, it changes the conversation to one that could lead to some resolution. To be understood, first understand. So you don't wait for a crisis to discuss these issues. It's something that you should periodically examine. And then there's the obvious recommendation to have mutually agreed upon spending rules and limits regarding what expenditures need consultation before being undertaken. And the bottom line is clarity of expectations, right? You have to have a vision and an understanding. It says in Mishlei, Be'ein chazon yifara am. Without that vision thing, you kind of lose yourself. So that's the initial set of recommendations about money. And just to think about it, there's a fascinating set of research studies done by Dr. Lassen in Baltimore. And he interviewed a large number of couples who had taken chassan and kala classes a year earlier. And a year after their wedding, he asked them a basic question. What do you wish you knew a year ago? What was it that you wish you had been prepared for better? And by far, number one was people said that they wished that they had the parents in their lives, the adults in their lives, their chassan and kala teachers, prepare them for money and for budgeting. Next area that we're talking about is about division of responsibility, and we're going to have a clip now where we're going to, it'll become obvious why we're showing this clip.
Woo! Hey, honey.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Oh, wow, you got a lot happening.
I know. Very exciting.
I am starving.
Oh, careful. That's very hot. Yep. Hey, you should get ready, okay?
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
Got a lot of nice stuff. Got a pizza.
All kinds of stuff.
Terrific.
And so you get to decide what to, get everything.
Courts is the right-hander, Will Holman the lefty.
Gary?
Yeah. Oh,
Gary.
come on. Really?
You got 3 lemons.
What my baby wants, my baby gets. You know that.
No, but I wanted 12. Baby wanted 12.
Why would you want 12 lemons?
Because I'm making a 12-lemon centerpiece.
So no one's actually even eating them? They're show lemons?
Yeah, they're just show lemons. Shown in the center of the table. Glad you find that amusing, but I cannot fill a vase with only 3 lemons.
Well, can't you just use, like, maybe a drinking glass?
I could use a
Well, you
drinking...
can have a smaller version of a centerpiece.
I'm not gonna use a drinking glass for our centerpiece.
You know what? I got an idea. Why don't we go ahead and scratch the centerpiece idea altogether? Because the chicken that burnt my mouth could maybe use a little bit of lemon on top of it. Guess what? Now we made a better meal versus something visually nice to look at.
What's happening here? What are you doing? What are you doing?
I had such a long day on the bus. I need a little bit of downtime. My feet are killing me.
Come on, my feet are killing me too. I worked all day. Went to the market. I cleaned this entire condo, and then I've been cooking for the last 3 hours. Come on, help set the table.
Sweetheart,
What?
you've done such a great job already. Don't you want to finish it yourself and have that personal power, that accomplishment?
Set the table.
Listen to me. Do you think that when Michelangelo, right, was painting the 16th chapel, that he said, hey guys, I did pretty good on the first 15 chapels, but why don't you help me design this one? And maybe you could help me, give me a brush, and you guys can grab brushes and we can all make a great chapel. No, he didn't. And you want to know what the results were? A masterpiece.
Okay. It's the Sistine Chapel, not the 16th. And I bet when Michelangelo asked for 12 brushes, they didn't bring him 3.
When we did a study together with Debbie Fox in California and the OU, looking at, I think it was 4,000 couples, Orthodox couples around the United States and Canada. We looked at the 5 or 6 top reasons that people fought. I won't bore you with all the details of the top 5 or 6. That could be for another evening. But division of responsibility, chores, is a major source of conflict. Okay, and I just wanted to use this as a springboard to make a couple of recommendations. Okay. And again, a lot of common sense here, but again, we need the chazon, we need the clarity. Number 1, negotiation is not the same as complaining. To be assertive about this and to have negotiation, if you're feeling resentful, there needs to be a calm discussion about a fair division of responsibility. 3 words in Sefer HaChasidim, going back to the Middle Ages, capture it all. Here are the 3 words. Achris kitata charata. After argument, there's regret. Isn't that true? After you lose it with the spouse, isn't there always a fairly high level of regret? So here, it's just common sense, okay? Strike when the iron is cold. Don't do it for him or her, okay? If it's his or her turn to clean, let's say. because that means it's never going to get fixed. Okay, you have to hold back and let it play out, and try not to get into a critique of the quality of his or her work. It means a lot of biting of tongues. It means a lot of trying to pull back, but that's the general rule of thumb here, okay? Let's move on to harsh startup. No, we're not. No, next we're gonna go to, there's a lot more I could do here, but I'm trying to control myself to be fair to my co-presenters. So the next issue that I wanted to talk about is the issue of gender differences as a source of conflict. This is one of the main areas. I don't think you're going to be hearing anything from me that you haven't heard before, but I'm going to, I know I'm out of order by one, but we'll go back. So here's a famous video, short video. My guess is almost everybody here has seen it, but I've probably seen it 100 times, and I always find it to be enlightening. So here you're about to see, okay, it's not about the nail.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
One of the leading experts in the world on marriage, Dr. John Mordechai Gottman, who I'll talk about for the final sequence in a few minutes, he's done a lot of fascinating research, and over 400 peer-reviewed articles he's published on marriage and how to help marriages that are stressed. And one of the things he found is he has couples fight. And as they fight, he measures their physiologic response to stress, their blood pressure, their pulse rate, cortisol levels, the stress hormone. He looks at every single measure that you possibly can. And he finds an interesting gender difference, okay? Not 100% of the time, but for 80% of women, the more they talk about what they're upset about, the more calm they become. Their blood pressure goes down, pulse rate goes down, cortisol levels go down. Talking things out for 80% of women just makes them feel better. 80% of men, the more they talk about what's upsetting to them in the marriage, or what the conflict is about, the sicker they get. Their blood pressure shoots up, cortisol levels shoot up, okay? Pulse rate shoots up. So the very thing that makes the average woman feel better makes the average man sick, okay? Now, yeah, remember, humor is making nothing out of something. So it's something to think about. And part of it is to the extent that we could normalize this reality. It's what men do for a living, it's what women do for a living. It's not all the time. There is that 20% in each group that are exceptions. But basically what we have here is these findings, and I hope this isn't controversial. This is really coming. I have a new book that just came out that's a fascinating analysis of the new neuroscience research on gender differences. And it's fascinating, and it's fascinating the way it works with the Parsha. This Parsha in particular, I'm going to control myself, but Rabbi Rosner's shiur on Bo this week was unbelievable shiur on deep insights into marriage. Any of you could go onto ou.org. This week's shiur on this morning's Parsha gives you much deeper insight into all of this. But let me go over with you some of the recent findings from neuroscience. Women may have more fibers connecting the two hemispheres of the brain. As the brain connects and pulls from many different sources of information, upset with spouse can become more intricate and complex. Men have fewer connective fibers, which might allow men to separate themselves from the problem and more easily process one issue at a time. And the general recommendations are how to separate won't from can't, okay? To go from she won't let go or he just doesn't care, to give way to understanding this is what the opposite gender does for a living, and it's the way we grow. And it's not a sign of anything other than the way it's meant to be. We grow. Marriage, as one brilliant marital therapist called it, is a people-growing machine. My father would always quote the Mishnah in Yevamos and the Tiferes Yisrael from the early 1820s. He says, what's embedded in the word Nisuin? The deep wisdom embedded in the word Nisuin is the following, is that the inevitable differences between men and women, okay, can either be a masa, a burden that weighs us down, or the inevitable differences could be a masa. You know what else the Hebrew word masa means? A song, a banner, something transcendent. And it's up to us on how to manage our expectations, as we just heard, in a way that it becomes a source of growth. Let me move to the final category now. And this is the category of this is the one on Lucy, the turning towards. Yeah, could you put that one on, and then I'll just talk it out, and we'll end with that. Oh, before we do it, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let me do the lead into this, okay? Because it'll make you really want to see this and understand it a little bit. It goes like this. The Yeshiva University Smicha training program, and their continuing training program for Rabbanim. About 6-7 years ago, we were able to bring in Dr. John Mordechai Gottman and his wife to spend 2 days training rabbis and the Smicha students on marriage. You have to understand, this is the leading man. Almost anybody would agree to this. And he showed a film of people who spend the week in his lab in University of Washington campus in Seattle. And in the film, it shows something called turning towards. And the recommendation was that basically he was showing us how to make a simple change in your marriage. But let me just tell you what happened. First of all, when we announced that he was coming for 2 days, we were told that we have room for 330 rabbis and smicha students. We sold out in the first 30 minutes. And then had tremendous pressure with the huge overflow crowds of rabbis and I think Rebbitzins, rabbis and Rebbitzins, and the smicha students and their wives from all over the country. Okay? We're bringing him back soon, by the way. So he's a well-deserved reputation. Okay? But of all the things he said in those 2 days, the one thing that changed everybody's marriage, to this day, years later, people will say to me, remember when we had Gottman come? Remember what he said about turning towards? It changed my marriage. My own marriage, which thank God for the last 42 years, Leah and Hara, is a wonderful marriage. It improved our marriage. It's something we do on a regular and daily basis, my wife and myself. Do you want to hear it, or should we end it at this? Are we okay? You'd like to hear it? Okay, here we go. Okay. So let me show you that Lucy clip on turning towards.
Coffee, dear? Ricky, you want some more coffee? Are your eggs all right, dear? Are your eggs? How are your eggs, Lucy? Oh, they're just fine, thank you. Would you care for some more coffee? Oh, no, thanks. It's just right, thank you. You're a wonderful cook. Oh, do you really think so? Oh, thank you. Would you care for sugar in your coffee? Oh, well, thank you. Don't mind if I do. You are back there, aren't you?
Okay, so let me end with what he showed us. What he showed us, beautifully illustrated by one of the more famous couples in the world, is the following. He showed in this beautiful apartment on the University of Washington campus where they had cameras in all the public areas of the apartment. And people are spending the week there. And the wife is looking out of the beautiful picture window on the University of Washington and Seattle campus, looking out and seeing the beauty of a lake out there. Her husband is sitting down reading the New York Times. And she turns towards her husband and she says, honey, aren't we lucky to be able to spend a whole week here? How many people could afford to do it? How many people are able to do it? Isn't that incredible? Now the husband has an akudas habachira, a point of choice, okay? He could either do what he did, which is to do what you just saw, which is to say aha and go back to reading his article in the New York Times, or he could choose to turn towards, to realize she's making a bid for an important conversation, to reconnect, which is what they're spending the whole week doing, to talk about their shared vision and their shared dream, to use time in that sacred way to really connect. And what Gottman shows is when you deliberately make up your mind, whenever either one of you is making a bid towards having a real important conversation, turn towards one another, okay? Viktor Frankl said it best. He said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our choice. In that space lies our growth. Stimulus, honey, aren't we lucky to be spending a week here? Response, okay? It could be to really turn towards and to have a deep and meaningful conversation. The New York Times article will wait, and it may wait forever. Doesn't matter, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's how you occupy the space between the stimulus and response, how you use your time that makes that essential kind of you. And I'll just end with this week's Parsha, the Sforno on this week's Parsha, okay? We just read it this morning. We just read it. Here's what he says about the sacred trust of time, about how incredibly essential time is between husband and wife, okay? And with this, I'll end. Here's what he says, the Sforno. This month is for you, the first of the months. From now on, the months will be yours to do with them as you wish, the Sforno says. However, during the days of enslavement, your days, meaning time, were not yours. Rather, they were for the service of others and their desires. Therefore, it is the first for you of the months of the year, because it is in this month that begins your autonomous existence. We're blessed to be free people. We're blessed to be able to have an amazing night like tonight, to take a step back and to look at some of the important issues. And I'll just end with this beautiful quote, which says, remember the little things, because one day we'll look back and realize that they were the great things. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Pelcovitz, for your wise and thoughtful insights and recommendations. And now we're going to give equal time to our second panelist. Rachel Pill is a licensed social worker who has been a therapist for the past 30 years. She is the co-founder and director of the Long Island Guidance and Wellness Center. Rachel maintains a practice in the 5 towns and lectures nationally and internationally on topics related to dating, marriage, and parenting. She has taught on the graduate school level in both Yeshiva University and Touro School of Social Work. Rachel has recently completed training as a doula. She is now helping women survivors of trauma or emotional disorders during their pregnancies and during the birth process. Rachel is also very proud to be a member of the JWLC. Rachel, welcome, and please come up and share your thoughts and insights with us.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to first start by acknowledging I recognize that I am the one thing in between you and the Viennese buffet. And I know that, so everybody hang in there, take a few deep breaths, and hopefully everybody will walk out of here gaining information and a thought, an idea, something that you're going to be able to take away with you, and that is going to make it worth waiting another few minutes for the lovely buffet. And I also just want to say that this is amazing. It is beautiful to look out here and to see all the people who have come, and I'm excited that everybody who's here clearly, well, either you had nothing to do tonight, or you want to improve your marriages and make them even better than they already are. So thank you. I'm glad you're all here. I also just want to acknowledge my parents who are here, who, Baruch Hashem, are going to be married soon, 64 years? Almost 64 years, so. And of course, my husband. Okay, so basically, I really would like to try to do something different tonight. We are here, I'm supposed to be talking about how to develop and nurture emotional closeness in our marriages. And we are going to talk about that, but we're going to do it a little different. Okay? Everybody game to try something a little different? Don't worry, it's not gonna be anything weird. Or maybe it will, it's okay. So we're gonna start off first by turning to the person next to you, if it's your spouse. So if it's your spouse sitting next to you, I want you to turn to that person. If you are here without a spouse, then close your eyes and envision your spouse. If you are here with your spouse, please do not close your eyes. And I would like you to look at your spouse. David, are you looking for Lonnie? Okay, go. That's beautiful. I would like you to look at your spouse and make eye contact. And no matter what happened before you came to this room tonight, whether your spouse napped all afternoon and you didn't, can't imagine where that happened, whether you wanted to leave earlier to get a good parking spot and you didn't get to, whether you wanted to sit up front and you're all the way in the back, hi everyone in the back, whatever happened, whatever stress, whatever was going on, look at your spouse, turn towards them, and give them a genuine smile. Smile at your spouse. Smile like you mean it. Okay. Okay, that's enough. Let's not get carried away. So now, the idea tonight is that I really want to take you on a revolution. I'm starting a revolution, and I want to take you all with me because it doesn't work well when it's one person. And I want to start a revolution of more joy and happiness in marriages. I don't know what happened. It's very disconcerting that there are 3 of me. I don't know. Like it's not so attractive 1. 3 is like a little much. Okay. We need these? Oh, thanks. Good. Thanks, Gary. I don't know when it happened, but as a community and in the world in general, we have become so intense, okay? It's like people wear intensity like a badge of courage. I was in Shul this morning, a milestone, and I happened to be talking to friends of mine, and we were joking around, and first of all, some people said, I heard you're speaking tonight. I said, yeah, I do this a lot. And they said, it's a good thing. Marriages are really in trouble. I said, well, that's not what we're speaking about. And they were like, but you really should. We're in crisis. Okay, thanks. But I was talking to friends of mine, and casually I said kind of like, so what are you doing tomorrow? Sunday. It's Sunday. Oh, I've got this going on, I've got that going on, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to... And they were listing things that you can't accomplish in a week. And I said, so maybe one Sunday we'll just hang out, get together. A lot of us are empty nesters. Sort of, they all keep coming back. But we're kind of empty nesters, and I'm like, maybe we'll get together, we'll do something. Oh, I wish I could. There's just no time. And I'm like, well, I have time. Oh, you couldn't possibly. It was almost like they felt bad for me if I actually had free time to just enjoy life. Call me crazy, but I want to have fun. I want to enjoy. I want to be able to do fun things. But it's almost embarrassing to say I have some time. It's almost like it's not okay if you just have downtime. We have to be intense. And because we're so intense, our relationships have gotten intense. The way we do everything has gotten intense. And so our marriages have gotten intense. Think about it. We date intense, right? I'm not even going to go into how many dates you're allowed, how fast you get engaged, how quick it all has to go, if you're allowed to even think for 20 minutes about the shidduch, whether or not to say yes, because you have to decide right away, okay? And then we get engaged and we find our beshert. And then our engagements are intense. They're so quick, who has time to have fun? Okay? Nobody gets to date while they're engaged. And then we get married, and that becomes intense. We have to do this right. We have to do it perfectly. We have to do everything intense. I don't know the other word. But the reality is, that doesn't work. And if it does work, it's certainly not fun. Like, it's supposed to be fun. There's a reason that we go from dating to engagement to marriage, and then I'm going to talk about stages of marriage in a second. And the reason is because each one builds on the other. You have to have each of them, because if not, you're just left with a lot of rules, a lot of shoulds. Anybody who knows me, I don't like shoulds. You should do it this way, you should do it that way, we should. Who cares about the shoulds? I want to bring joy back into marriages. I want to bring fun back into marriages. Anybody want to go along for the ride? If I had my choice, everybody would be walking around with a button that said, did you smile at your spouse today? Did you laugh with your spouse today? We need to put the fun back into it. That's how we develop emotional closeness. Okay, but until we get there, until we get to that point, I would like to talk about what are some very practical ways of establishing emotional closeness in marriage. And at the end of the evening, there are packets that you're going to be receiving, and in the packet are a couple handouts with practical things that I'm talking about tonight, so that you can take them home, you can review them, you can intensely discuss them and dissect them and decide if you're each doing it absolutely correctly. Just kidding. Okay. Last bracha of Sheva Brachas, last blessing of the Sheva Brachas that we say to a bride and groom the week after of the wedding. And in that last bracha, there are 4 expressions of love. And those 4 expressions correlate to 4 of the 5 stages of marriage. And I would like to talk about those expressions of love and how, in a fun, less intense, not so critical way, we can accomplish things in each of those stages that will help us to have marriages that are just lighter, that are just more pleasant, that are just, we're eager to come home. We want to be with the person. It's not so heavy. So, my mantra for the evening in each of these stages, each of them is going to have some tasks. But did I say the evening? I apologize to the people who are like, I thought she was only talking for 15 minutes. I'm going to make it very quick. Each of these stages has some tasks, but there's 2 things that are in common in each one of them. One is the mantra, you can be right in marriage or you can be happy. You can't be both. Okay? This is the key to shalom bayis. This is the key to emotional closeness. Everybody has to choose. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? You cannot be both. And I always get people who say, why not? Because it doesn't work. Try it. It doesn't work. This is what being mavater is about. This is what deciding. It's not that important. I'm going to choose happy. Okay? Happiness is a choice. Happiness is not a state of being. You could be in the most difficult situation and you can choose to be happy. And I want to be very clear. I am a marital therapist in this neighborhood, okay? It's not like I don't see tough stuff. But I'm seeing more and more that in many of the cases that I see, people can choose to be happy. They don't have to be unhappy. They don't have to be in crisis. They don't have to be deciding, I don't want this. This doesn't suit my needs anymore. We have to develop that emotional closeness, and we have to just keep getting lighter and happier and more joyful and more giving. So, the stages of love, number 1 is called ahava, right? The Sheva Brachos. Ahava, achva, shalom, v'reis. That's what I'm going to be mentioning. Ahava is young love. It's that first stage of love. It's that exciting, eager, lustful, brimming with excitement love. Anybody remember? But I want you to remember. I want you to think back to it. I want you to remember when that night that you got engaged, or that time where you decided, this is the right person. This is the one, where they did something that just made you go, wow, that's who I want to be with. We don't stop and remember that enough. We don't think about it enough. But that ahava, that young, exciting love, is the foundation for the rest of marriage. If we don't have that, if we don't nurture that, then we go through the rest of marriage. We go through the rest of marriage with the seriousness and the intensity, because we didn't hold on and we didn't build that young love. So what's the task? What do we have to do in that first stage of marriage in order to foster that young love? So there are a lot of things. Number 1, do stuff together. When I think back on before kids, why didn't we take advantage? Why didn't we go and do and play? And everyone always says, because nobody had the money back then to do it, right? When we're young and we have time, we don't have money. When we're old and we have money, we don't have time. So go figure it out. We have to make that time. So we need to spend time together, do fun things. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. But if you have the money, spend it. Enjoy it. Go for it. Okay? Because then, Baruch Hashem, the next stages come along and they're very different. But this is how we foster that love, that ahava. Filling each other's emotional tanks. I don't have time tonight to talk about the 5 love languages. How many people are familiar with Gary Chapman's 5 love languages? Yeah? Okay. Anybody in this room who's not familiar with it, go on your Amazon right now, because I know you all have your phones, I can see it. Go on your Amazon right now and order it. Gary Chapman, the 5 love languages. And anybody who is familiar with it, go back and read it again. Read it together. Figure out what fills your emotional tank. Okay? There's 5 languages of love. Words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. We all have a primary language. And everybody thinks usually, oh, mine's physical touch. No, it's not. Okay? It's very rarely physical touch. Mine's receiving gifts. Hi, sweetheart. He knows that. My husband buys me the most beautiful gifts. It doesn't matter, and the truth is, your love language can come from the most wonderful thing. Why is my love language receiving gifts? And this is true story. Because when we were growing up, whenever it was anybody's birthday, they got their birthday gifts on the dining room table when they woke up in the morning. But my parents made sure that every other child had gifts waiting also. And so that gifts were something that were nurturing and that were calming and that filled me with love. That's why my love language is definitely receiving gifts, and I really like diamonds. But that's why my love language is receiving gifts. Go find out what your spouse's love language is and speak that language to them. Speak it again and again and again. And if you didn't learn it in the beginning, learn it now. It's never too late. Another task of that first stage of young love, that ahava, developing a sexual fun relationship. Okay? Taking the time and learning how to develop this wonderful relationship. Slowing down and unplugging and spending some time together each and every day. Okay? It's harder than it sounds. We are all addicted to our devices, but everybody has to unplug at some point every day and spend some time with your spouse. Marshall Linehan, who is the creator of dialectical behavioral therapy. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. If you have, great. If you haven't, look it up. And she said, wisdom grows when we experience our lives instead of running through it. When we want to experience love, we have to experience our life. We have to unplug and we have to focus on the other person. During that first stage of marriage, we take a me individual, and we have to keep them intact and create a we. Okay? It's what we call the three-legged stool of marriage. I want to encourage you all, you sit on that stool for the rest of your life. That's your stool. Make it pretty, make it padded, don't make it prickly, don't make it fragile, don't make it that you can't drink on it, you can't eat on it, make it fun. Create that we out of the me and the me in a fun way. So now we move on to stage 2. I have like 5 more minutes, right? Do I have 5 more minutes? Okay. We move on to stage 2. The second expression of love is achva. Wait, so now we just went all through this wonderful love, and now you want us to be like siblings? It's all over? What does that mean, achva? What does it mean, be like brothers? Like, that doesn't sound very romantic or exciting, unless you live in like Appalachia. So what does it really mean? It means that you treat each other like siblings. I don't care, siblings who get along, don't get along. When times are tough, you've got each other's back. When you're in crisis, you can reach out to that person. That you protect the other person, you have their back. That's how you have to treat your spouse. That's the kind of love that comes after the exciting love. It comes in a stage of life, stage 2, which is cuckoo. Stage 2 is where we have children, build careers, buy houses, get involved in our community, commit to everything. Oh, and we're still supposed to have time for our spouse. So that expression of love is, I might not talk to my sibling every day. I might not have time to intensely connect with them every day, but I've got their back. They are important. And that's how couples have to be. That's the next phase of love, is knowing how to do that with each other. Okay, so how? First thing is, again, remember to choose happy, not right. This is the stage of marriage where most people get into trouble because they want to be right. The exciting love has worn off, and now it's different. Now the gloves are off, and I want to be right. And that's where couples get in trouble. You know what they call the 7-year itch, right? It's a famous thing in marriage, 7-year itch. It's because it's this stage of marriage, and they forget to be happy. They choose to be right. Don't do that. That doesn't nurture emotional closeness. Choose to be happy. Mindfulness, right? How many people here? It's the catchphrase today. Okay? What is mindfulness? Okay, give me 1 second. Mindfulness is the quality of awareness that a person brings to everyday living. Learning to use your wise mind rather than letting your mind control you. Choosing to be present and pay attention to whatever you are doing at a particular moment in time. Mindfulness teaches a person to direct his or her attention to only one thing, one person, one experience at a time. Mindfulness is how we ground ourselves to truly experience life and relationships. Mindfulness frees us from judgment, assumptions, and defensiveness. I beg couples, I literally beg sometimes, to practice mindfulness. And in the packet, I give you a sheet with 2 mindfulness exercises for couples. I want you to try, go home, try them, enjoy them, see where they lead, but try them, okay? See what connection can happen. But don't just do this once, do it every day. Practice every day connecting with your spouse. Give them a wish in the morning. Dr. Pelkovitz spoke about turning toward, okay? Turn towards your spouse and give them a wish for the day. When they come home in the evening, when you connect again, when you've unplugged your devices and you connect, say something you're grateful to the person for that day. And it could be something simple. Thank you so much for taking out the garbage. Thank you so much for moving my car for alternate side parking, whoever lives in wherever they do that. That's a thing, right? Alternate side, yeah. But whatever it is, thank you for going to work. Thank you for remembering or making dinner. Whatever it might be grateful, connect, ground yourselves. That's how you build the trust for the stage called Achva. So now, that's great. Now we're on to Shalom. Shalom is peace. Stage 3 and 4 of marriage should get more peaceful. Why? Not because it gets calmer. It doesn't get calmer at all. You have adult children, you have grandchildren, you have hopefully parents to care for, you have community that you're involved in, you have your careers at their epitome. Life is not calmer, but marriage and relationships should become more peaceful. You should have a harmony, you should have a rhythm, you should have trust, because you've built it from ahava and achva, and now comes the shalom. Nurture it, enjoy it, allow it to blossom. How do you do that? One of the ways is to recognize shalom is also the root of shlemus, completion. Acknowledge that your spouse completes you. Now, some of you may be going, they don't complete me. That's really nice, Rachel. I don't know what you smoked before you came, but they don't complete me. Okay? If you choose that they complete you, most relationships can have that. Okay? I am not talking today about, God forbid, abusive relationships or relationships that are dangerous or in crisis. I got it. We're talking tonight about healthy marriages, healthy relationships. And sometimes people just get off track. Make a choice to get back on track. Make a choice to let your spouse complete you. Make a choice to choose happy. Make a choice to spend time with them, to get to know their love language. That's what creates the emotional closeness. Part of that is self-care. In the shalom stage of love, you also have to love you. Each person has to self-care in order to be able to take care of the other person. So when I go for those foot massages, those are really for my husband. Because if I self-care, it's for him. Am I like great or what? Like that's why you're doing it. In reality though, yes, if we self-care, then we can give to the other person. If we're drained, we can't give to the other person. One of the best things about in this stage and building this love, I always say Brené Brown, people are familiar with Brené Brown? Brené Brown always says, own your yes and accept your no. That has been life-changing for me, Truly life-changing. Because if I'm going to say yes to something, whether it be my children, my community, my spouse, anybody, I will do it b'simcha. I will own it. I will find the joy in it. I will not complain about it. But if I don't want to do it, I will learn to say no. And that's a tough one. Okay? It's tough to learn to say no because we're not trained to say no. None of us. And sometimes it's even saying no to your spouse. But it's okay, accept it. Because if you self-care, you will have so much to give to your spouse. Laugh twice as much as you cry. During stage 3 and 4 of marriage, there are things that come up. There are tough things. Whether it's illness, whether it's deaths, whether it's debt, whether it's jobs, there are things to cry about. Shidduchim, there are things to cry about. Make a decision to laugh twice as much as you cry. And do it with your spouse. Go. Do fun things. Try new things. Try to make your bucket list and do it. Now, I haven't mentioned date night yet, but I'm going to mention date night. One of the issues with date night, every marital therapist tells everybody, you got to do date night. You got to go out on date night. Date night, date night, date night. Some of my couples come back so stressed about date night that it totally defeats the purpose, okay? Date night does not have to be every week. It doesn't have to be every week. And one of the things I say is that every couple, we should do this, dear. Every couple, I preach, but I preach to myself, totally. Every couple should have a jar, a bag, a Ziploc bag, I don't care what you have. And each of you write down ideas of things you would want to do on date night. Some of them don't have to be expensive. Some of them could just be, I want to go for a walk on the boardwalk. Some of them could be, I want to go to, I don't know where, on a cruise. No, that's not date night. That would be date week. Whatever it is that you want to do. And each of you come up with 10 things. Wrap them up, tiny, you know how the kids do? Tiny, 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 tiny. Put them in the jar, put them in the bag. When you decide it's date night, and either you get a babysitter, you clear calendars, whatever it is, you pick one. And that's where you go. No discussion, no analyzation, no maybe that wasn't mine, that's not where I want to go. That's it. Eventually, you'll get 10 of yours. So everyone likes it tight, okay? But it will take the agony out of date night. Date night has become what Chalamayit sometimes is, right? Let's sit around discussing where we're going, and then we end up having a fight, and nobody goes anywhere. That's not what date night should be. And I have couples, that's all the time. Date night should be something, again, pre-plan ideas. Hire the babysitter if you need it. If you don't need it, Baruch Hashem. Clear your calendar. It's date night. Pick it out and go. That's how you get emotional closeness. And sometimes these ideas will be ridiculous. They won't work. They'll be whatever. And sometimes they'll be great. But you'll laugh about it. You'll have fun. You can't blame each other because you're both writing ideas down. I mean, you could, but don't. Choose happy, not right, remember? This way you have fun. And if you do it once a month, then you do it once a month. If you can do it every other week, do it every other week. But take the time to enjoy each other. We cannot be so serious. Okay, last one. The last one is Reyes, friendship. Not regular friendship. I am not a believer that your spouse has to be your best friend. I really not. Because most women, best friends are women, most men, best friends are men, and then people will come to me, they're married a couple years, and they'll say, we're splitting up. Why? Because he's just not my best friend. I'm like, okay. And they'll be like, but they told me he's supposed to be my best friend. I'm like, who's they? And forget it. He doesn't have to be your best friend, he has to be your best spouse. You have to build the love with him. You have to need each other, you have to want each other, but couples do not have to be best friends. If you are, beautiful, amazing, but you can have the most amazing marriage and you can still have your other best friend. Okay? Just saying. But don't only talk to your best friend and not your spouse. Balance, but we'll talk about that. But Reyes, what is Reyes? Reyes is deep, deep friendship that comes from years and years of putting in the work. It is the last stage of marriage. It is the golden years of marriage. And it is a time where you see couples, even if you know that they have fought their entire lives, they are fiercely protective of each other. They take care of each other. They reach a point where they connect in a way that is beautiful and it's not intense. Okay? If you ever want to know how to have a good marriage, look at those people that have reached Reyes. Look at those people that will do anything for each other and try to model that. Try to model the way that if they don't feel well, they're there for each other. If they make a joke, they'll laugh at the joke. If they hear it. There's a different level of connection. And that's what we want to strive for. In Mishlei, it says, Kamayim hapanim lapanim, kain lev ha'adam la'adam. Just like when we look in the water, we see our reflection back, so too when we look at a person, they see the reflection back of what we're showing. Let's show our spouses happiness, love, light, joy. Let's choose to be happy. Let's choose to make a revolution. Everybody who's in this room tonight, I'm going to ask you to tell 5 people about this. Go on social media, go on your phones, call your friends, I don't care. And tell 5 other people, choose happiness. Smile at your spouse more. Laugh with your spouse more. We will start a revolution of, instead of crisis, there will be simcha. There will be joy. We will be able to elevate marriage to exactly what it was meant to be and what it should be. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel, for your passion and your interest. And now, just to close our program, the Venerable Myrna Zisman.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you leave, don't go out the door yet. I have something to tell you, okay? I'm closing the program, and I truly, truly hope that all of you enjoyed this evening. This was a labor of love from these wonderful, wonderful women. Now, I must tell you, I'm in this town for about 20 years. I sit on a couple of boards. I'm part of the JCC, by the way, the boards. It's the first time that this group got together. This is a group of women, second to none. Every one of them, pure gold. And you get them together to form and to work and to get a group like this together, to have a program that they've worked on so hard. I mean, Margie and Suri and every one of you, Rookie, Stacy and Seppi from the JCC, amazing, amazing women, every one of you. So I'm truly so proud to be part of this group, and I'm looking forward to continuing this kind of work. We have so many beautiful things in store, and working together, fabulous. So let me just thank just a few of the people that were here and helped really make this. The UJA Foundation and Seppi, our wonderful Seppi. The Goral JCC with Stacy and Rachel. Rabbi Hain and Rebbetzin Hain for hosting tonight's in their beautiful shul. And the caterers, Avi and David Abitzer. How do you say that? Yeah? Okay. And Gary Wallen. Thank you so much, Gary, for all of your work. Okay? So now we have a terrific buffet for you outside. And also, something very special, don't leave without looking. We have photo booths where you can go and take a beautiful photo with your spouse that you fell in love with all over again. Thank you.